What's up, everybody? Welcome to Boxing News Live, my exclusive show on this YouTube channel. You enjoy this show? Boop! Hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel. It helps me grow. It helps me do a lot of things. And I'm hitting you with a bunch of new content every week. If you enjoy this, be sure to go over to my newsletter at lukieboxing.substack.com or read me daily on proboxtv.com/news. That's where you can find me. Let's jump into all the things that happened this week so I can give some thoughts in a 20-minute video like I do every week. This time on Monday. Regis Prograis picked up a split decision victory over Danielito Zorrilla. And what we saw here was a lot of different things. You can read about this on proboxtv.com today because I have a story breaking down everything about it. But Zorrilla was really underrated going into this fight. One could even say maybe Prograis to a certain degree might be overrated based on some aspects of people not wanting to fight him. But I think that it's all the perfect storm to set forth a flat performance. And what I mean by that is I'm saying, is Regis Prograis, who's in that same bracket and age range as Josh Taylor, is he regressing? Possibly, but let's not be doom and gloom. Regis is an offensive fighter who at times can look limited in the ring. That being said, in terms of promotion, I think that there's only a few fighters I would rather hear speak than Regis Prograis. I think he has a true passion for the sport of boxing, loves the sport of boxing, and I think part of the problem with his performance with Zorrilla was, I don't think he fully took the guy serious. No fault of Regis's or whatever, maybe fault of his. I don't think that he respected this guy to do what he was doing in terms of the movement and avoiding him, and the issues persisted from that. But also, I think that being from New Orleans means a lot to Regis. And I think that he wanted to put on the type of show that he wanted to go to when he was a young person. And sometimes when you want to have the best performance of your life, you have the worst performance. The only thing about this was when he got dropped in the first round and Ray Corona didn't call it and people are going to talk about it, this, that, and a third. This fight reminded me of two fights. It reminded me of Richard Abril versus Brandon Rios. And after that fight, Brandon Rios still went on to have a great career. No one ever saw Richard Abril again. So it could be like that. It also reminded me of Josh Taylor versus Jack Catterall, which we don't know how that's going to end, but it's looking like Josh Taylor's career is going to kind of look like when he was the undisputed champion and then everything kind of came crashing down. That's the way the story is looking currently, though we hope that's not what it is. For me, I think this is very cautionary because this is his first fight with Matchroom, and this was supposed to be to shake up the division, the guy that's very avoided, and to be truthful, he is avoided, but I think a lot of the reasoning behind him being avoided is also the paycheck associated with fighting him. He hits very hard, and he's a dangerous rhythm fighter who, if the money isn't right, he could shorten a fighter's career. People want to be compensated a certain way. And I think that that's the mixed narrative that we haven't heard is the truth is kind of in the middle. Regis is an amazing fighter. At times he hasn't had the avenues to leverage these big fights because of the monetary compensation. With Eddie Hearn behind him, I'm excited for what's next. There was talks of Devin Haney. There's tons of good fighters. I'm excited to see Regis in the mix, but I'm putting a little asterisk next to this fight because we might revisit this fight as things changed in his career, or this might be a night where he tried to perform too much for his city and was far too proud. Undercard action, we had Gassiev beat Harold Calderon. It was a WBA welterweight eliminator fight. Honestly, I don't really want to touch on this fight that much. Much respect to both fighters for getting in the ring, but for a WBA welterweight eliminator fight, there just wasn't that much urgency. And in a fight like this, I would hope to see a bit more urgency because many fighters, great fighters, don't get a chance to fight for a world title. And what we saw was two counterpunchers waiting on each other to counter. Where does this guy go? I believe Cody Crowley was in some sort of an eliminator. I'd love to see Cody Crowley versus this fighter. I'd love to see Virgil Ortiz, Stanionis, winner or loser with this fighter. But he sits in a situation where we need to see more. His portfolio needs to expand because right now there's two guys that run welterweight, and it's Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. So even though he won this eliminator, hopefully that just creates a new avenue for him to get a high-paying fight that's extremely interesting. The highlight of the whole card was Alejandra Guzman knocking out 2020 Somalian Olympian Ramla Ali. Ali has a heavy push behind her. She was a solid amateur. I wouldn't say she was an elite amateur, but she was a very solid amateur, has a tremendous story, and is a very interesting personality in the sport of boxing. What happened is it looked like Guzman tagged her early on. Her corner was giving her advice. She wasn't listening to the advice, and she ended up getting dropped in the 5th round and then knocked out in a knockout of the year contender, though I think Junto Nakatani, Andrew Maloney, is still probably the front runner for that award. This is one of those highlight knockouts, and what it kind of shows is that boxing is a physical sport, and though Ramla Ali has a lot of great traits, movement, skill, speed, there is a level of the pro game where you have to be physically tough, aggressive, and crazy, and that's going to be her transition. I also wanted to segue this into Aaron Aponte. He lost to Xavier Madrid. Once again, this is not doom and gloom. Xavier Madrid, tough fighter, fought Tiger Johnson when he was undefeated, lost. A guy that came in, saw a vulnerability that Chris Algieri pointed out with Aponte, that he doesn't like to fight on the inside. And what did he do? He exploited it. For both Ramla Ali and Aaron Aponte, these are... in the old days, this would be when your career starts. This would be the beginning of a career. But now everyone wants to be perfect. Everyone wants a great record. Everyone wants to kind of belittle people, talk down to people, be this expert person, whether they're a fighter or they're a social media personality or whatever. Look, not everybody's journey is supposed to be the same. I just spent 5 hours watching the United States Open because I love golf. If you don't love golf, well, I'm sorry. It's something I love. A guy named Wyndham Clark, which is the most golf name ever, won it, and he faced a lot of adversities where he had to find himself in order to win one of the biggest tournaments in the United States and the world. So for Ramla Ali or Aaron Aponte to be counted out right now, that is just silly, because both fighters show tremendous attributes to be elite fighters. Also, Ginny Fuchs has picked up a good win on this undercard. Once again, Adasia Smith Rodriguez, really a tough fighter. I had Ginny winning the fight, but this is one of those good learning experiences for when you get to the top of the division, because it's hard to believe people are going to propose much more difficult styles than what she faced on this evening. She got cut, and she persevered and behaved like a champion, and that's one of those tests to see how far you want to go in this sport. Also, shout out to my guy Jeremy Hill, who got a win on the card and was extremely passionate with his victory. You love to see that. Now let's flip over to Tszyu. Tszyu knocked out Carlos Ocampo in 77 seconds. That's a minute and a half or so faster than Errol Spence did it in 2018 at 147 pounds. This was the exact performance Tszyu needed. No one was interested in this fight. I didn't really set my calendar for it. I was doing other things, and he gave us a fight that could be seen in an Instagram viral video. This is the perfect use of a fight that doesn't get much interest, is to turn it into something that's a marketing tool, that's a viral performance that gets people talking. Tszyu is on a list right now to me. It's Gervonta Davis, Tszyu, Teofimo Lopez, and Women's Boxing Channel. Don't think I'm not looking at you. Also, Chantel Cameron. But Tszyu is a breakout superstar right now in 2023. And with this fight, could return as soon as July or August if he chooses to. We're going to see what Jermall Charlo does. Can't stand the fact that most people are acting like Jermall Charlo would avoid Tszyu. He's fought everybody, so that's just stupid. Tszyu's awesome. Jermall Charlo's awesome. Let's make the fight. It's an awesome fight. It's as simple as that, Jack. Undercard, Sam Goodman surprised me. An upset friend of the program, Ra'eese Aleem. What's up with that? Well, Sam Goodman's a great fighter. This is one of these awful moments where this is an outstanding fight, a great competitive boxing match, where I'm not going to have a ton to say because there isn't really much to say because I can't contextualize the fight. Aleem was doing good in the first half. Sam Goodman made an adjustment and was able to win on the back end. It was a very close and competitive fight. I do think Goodman just barely edged it, but I also think this is a fight where we're going to look back and go, oh, these guys fought. This was a true championship pedigree fight that occurred kind of under the radar. And I think that's cool to see. Goodman now will more than likely fight Marlon Tapales. And hopefully Ra'eese Aleem can get another opportunity, or if he wants, go up to featherweight and look at some of these opportunities that are out there. Couple of other things people have asked me about for this show. Teofimo Lopez last week said that he retired from boxing. Now there's news that he's given up the junior welterweight title at WBO that he beat from Josh Taylor. Look, retirements in boxing are kind of like when Jay-Z, the rapper, retired in like 2004 or 2005. He's like, I got to retire. And we're like, wait, you're still young enough to rap and you got songs. And it kind of hinted at the idea of going away so then people miss you. And then when you return, it's a bigger event. I don't really think when boxers do this, people really believe them, that a fighter's going to retire when they're in their prime of their career and they could make millions of dollars. I understand that he believes he needs to be paid more, but that's also part of what contracts are based around. You sign a contract, and until your contract is up, then you get the period to renegotiate. Perfect example is with this new YouTube channel I've started. The more people tune in, the more I can negotiate with sponsors to get deals, which can support me, which can get you guys and girls better original content. It's the same concept there. Also, ProBox TV, friends of our channel, Declan Warrington reported that Deontay Wilder and Devin Haney are very close to signing with Skills Challenge. That's who signed Usyk. I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I believe that they are also handling the financial interests of the Saudi Arabian government involved in boxing. So what does that mean? It probably means that these fighters are going to get paid a lot of money. Now, my only fear with this is I hope that with a lot of money comes really exciting fights. I hope that it isn't, let's pay them a lot of money, and then the fights are kind of like an afterthought. It's going to be who will accept this amount of money, and then the other guy's going to fight for a lot more money. Hopefully we get to see two really exciting fighters in extremely interesting fights. The only thing that I would not be interested in is if the fights are happening in Saudi Arabia and there's absolutely no atmosphere, because that's been driving me nuts. People can say whatever they want, but I think that that's a huge issue when it comes to boxing, is the atmosphere. Also, Canelo Alvarez is rumored to now be facing Jermall Charlo. Last week we reported that he's rumored to fight Badu Jack next week. If Edgar Berlanga, we're about to talk about next, if he probably gets a first-round knockout or looks like $1 million, we might be reporting that Edgar Berlanga's up next. So it seems like every single week there's going to be a new Canelo headline by someone that can reach out to Canelo's people and get something that will fuel the boxing headlines. So now it's Jermall Charlo. That's a really interesting fight. He hasn't fought in 2 years. It makes me also wonder, is Jermall Charlo going to stay at 154? Because it felt like he was only staying at 154 because his brother was at 160. If Jermall goes up to 168, it kind of makes me believe Jermall might be going to 160 and there'd be a bout between him and Carlos Adames if Adames can get by Julian J. Rock Williams, which that is not a given. Let's go over and preview this week's fights and get you going. Edgar Berlanga is making his Matchroom debut this Saturday night on DAZN as he takes on Jason Quigley, the former Golden Boy Promotions fighter. He might still be a Golden Boy Promotions fighter. It's at the theater at Madison Square Garden, which is not the big building, but this is going to be Eddie Hearn and Berlanga's first chance to kind of see how the Berlanga experiment will be on a different platform that's not Top Rank. To me, Berlanga, there's a lot to like about him in terms of writing stories because he's a personality we don't always get in boxing. He's a very unapologetic New Yorker, a very unapologetic New York story. I think he's closer to an Odell Beckham Jr. than he is most professional boxers. I think he's kind of in his own way, in a different way, similar to Ryan Garcia. I don't think the belts matter as much to Berlanga as making the biggest fights. He's been very candid that he's pursuing a Canelo Alvarez fight, and no belts are on the line. I think he's pursuing that fight because it's a big payday, and there's some rivalry, Mexican-Puerto Rican, but it's really because it's a big fight that makes a lot of money. And I think that's the business Berlanga wants to be in, and I think that's the business everyone wants to be in. Berlanga has to look incredible in this fight. If he doesn't look incredible, I think it's almost a given that we see him in with Sulecki, or worst case scenario, we're getting a rematch with Jason Quigley if for some reason Jason Quigley beats him. This is what we're looking at this weekend. Is Berlanga is, to me, an incredible talent. He got 16 first-round knockouts. When you knock out guys like Ulysses Sierra and Eric Moon, these are guys that don't typically get knocked out in the first round. You could giggle and laugh, but these guys have ability and have been in world-class training camps. There was some level of aura around Berlanga that only elite boxers had, and he has lost it currently. Can Matchroom and the promotional team around that bring back his confidence? That is a huge question this weekend. I'm looking at the undercard of this fight. We got Reshat Madrid. He's taking on Dakota Linger. And I think that's an interesting fight because Reshat Madrid, there's tons of potential there, but he's having a lot of up and down performances. And he was an early adapter to signing with Matchroom Boxing. I'm hoping to see him do well, but Dakota Linger last year, around this time actually, knocked out Josue Vargas. I'm not sure he's returned to the ring. I'm doing half-baked research. But this is a great moment for Madrid if he wants to make noise in the 140-pound division and stand out because he's had a big financial investment behind him. This is the type of performance where he needs to wave his hand and say, hey, look at me. Also on this card, Adam Kalinacki, big ticket seller. He's going to be featured on the card. Khalil Cole, light heavyweight. He knocked out an Olympian in the Pan Am games or one of those games when he was an amateur. Tons of hype around him. He's had some issues outside of the ring, but there was always potential. Don't tell him he's a power puncher. They did a big vignette about him being a power puncher, even though in the amateurs everyone said, man, this guy can punch. He wants to tell you he's a boxer. I don't know enough yet because I haven't watched him enough yet, but I do know that if he knocked out a really highly touted, I believe, gold medal Cuban boxer, I should be paying attention to him, and he's with Matchroom, and he's got a strong team behind him of very famous people who have world champions, so that's interesting. Sneaky good flyweight fight. Yankel Rivera Figueroa is taking on Christian Robles. Christian Robles, friend of the program, is someone that I've done interviews with. Really, really nice person. Outstanding nice person. This is a fight that's going to float under the radar, but I think that's a really evenly contested fight. Also, someone I've known for a long time, Harley Medeiros, fantastic amateur boxer. He's deep on the undercard. And kind of a tradition of a lot of Edgar Berlanga cards is Pablo Valdez, a beloved New York guy, is going to be on the card. Pablo kind of has a story that a lot of New Yorkers know, and I don't need to put it out there, but it's good to see Pablo getting another fight. Believe he has a relationship with Berlanga, so, more power to him. That's the undercard. On Showtime, if you're a Showtime subscriber, I like this card. This is what we call the Hardcore Fanatics card. Carlos Adames, WBC interim world champion. I think after this fight, he's probably going to get a promotion and just end up being the WBC middleweight champion if he wins or if Julian Williams wins. Julian Williams is being slept on. Julian Williams, a lot of people say, oh, he doesn't have a chin. Remember how he fought against Jarrett Hurd? Yes, he's had a few back and forth performances, but against Carlos Adames, Adames is a guy, very talented, very strong fighter, but a lot of what Julian Williams does, it's kind of not what Adames does well. If you look stylistically, there is a comparison to Julian Williams and Patrick Teixeira. I think this is a much more interesting fight than people are giving it credit for. You got to favor Adames, but don't count out my guy Julian J. Rock Williams. That's a good dude, man. That's one of my favorite people I've ever gotten to spend time in the gym with. I will be watching that fight, and I'm very excited. Erickson Lubin versus Luis Arias. It's like the Spider-Man meme. They're looking at each other. It's the same person. Two people that were supposed to be standout prospects that are now at the crossroads, going, where does my career sit? They both have had kind of staggering losses that have kind of stalled out their careers. This is probably the loser of this fight has to either go back to club shows or possibly get a job. That is the stakes for this fight. Opener, Fernando Martinez versus Jade Barona. I believe this is the second world title fight of Martinez's IBF super flyweight belt. And I honestly don't know a ton about it. I believe Jade Barona is one of Sean Gibbons' guys. That is always going to mean that the guy can fight, and he's really good, and probably people don't know enough about him. Fernando Martinez has been in like 3 or 4 Fight of the Year fights, but just no one tunes into these cards this early or cares about the flyweights on the Showtime telecast. But he's friggin' awesome. This is the hardcore's fight card to watch. If you want to watch like hardcore, pure, evenly matched fights, just tune into the Showtime card. It's awesome. It just doesn't quite have the star power. Another one that you should know about, Joshua Franco rematching Kazuto Ioka in Japan. Have no clue if there's any form of television. They haven't made it available to me to know if there is. More power to you if you know. It's a darn shame that someone like Joshua Franco, who quite possibly could be the best super flyweight in the world, who's had 2 trilogies, one with Oscar Negrete and the other with the Maloney brother, is basically flying under the radar for most people because they're unaware of it. And if you're a huge Michael Hunter fan, really good heavyweight, he's fighting on a club show put on by Michael Reyes as well. If you like Boxing News Live, my little segment show, hit the subscribe button, hit a little like, and leave a comment for something like some segments or something, talking points, maybe even my hairline, how cool it looks as we head into the future. That would really be appreciated. It's Lukey. I'm out.